Welcome into Social Biz, the video show where each week we talk about something in the social marketing realm, whether it be how to use social media or in today's instance, how not to use social media. I am your host, Jacob Bodner, and you may be thinking to yourself, but Jacob, you're such an evangelist for social media. Why would you tell us not to use it? Well, I'm going to kind of go over some of the intricacies here and kind of why social media might not always be best for you. Just like any communication tool, and that's what social media is, it's not always the best option to use that particular tool. I'll point to you to the interview we did in the Status Update interview series, links available in the description, with Scott Westerman, the executive director of the Michigan State University Alumni Association. And I asked him how they use social media to kind of meet their goals and their expectations and what they're trying to do. And he basically said, we just see it as another tool to use to communicate with people. And that's exactly what it is. It's not the end-all be-all of marketing. It is a tool to communicate with people. If the people you're trying to communicate aren't there, there's no sense in using that tool. I want to go through real quick just one example that struck me today while I was surfing Facebook. And I saw that The Office, the TV show on NBC, had 10 million Facebook fans, and they hit that mark today. Congratulations to them. Big, awesome deal. 10 million is a huge number. Then I just realized while I was sitting there thinking that they don't even have 10 million viewers of their show every week. I mean, I keep up on TV ratings. They don't even hit 10 million. The average viewership of an episode of The Office is around 6 million, maybe 7 million when you include everything. If you really look at what the advertisers care about, the 18 to 49 demographic, it's like 3 million. So they have 10 million users on Facebook, but what is that really worth to NBC? NBC looks at that 10 million number, The Office is broadcast on NBC, and they think, great, that's awesome. We have a huge reach for The Office on Facebook, but it's not really translating into increased viewership. The viewership for The Office is consistently, even with 7 days of DVR included, less than 10 million people. NBC is in the business to make money. They're a for-profit organization. They make that money primarily on advertising revenue. That advertising revenue and how much you can charge for an ad is primarily calculated through Nielsen ratings. Nielsen ratings even further look at specific demographics, specifically the 18 to 49-year-old demographic, to look at how much a network can charge for advertising. So, NBC, how much is 10 million fans on Facebook really worth to NBC? Probably not a whole lot. What really matters is how many eyeballs are watching that TV show in a live setting plus 7 days or a few days of DVR. So it's awesome for The Office and NBC. They have 10 million fans on Facebook, but at the end of the day, what does it really mean to NBC? What do they really care? And if they're deciding if they want to cancel The Office or not, do they really think 10 million Facebook followers or 10 million Facebook fans is going to save the show? No, it's not really that big of a deal to them. They still, at the end of the day, care about making money and care about eyeballs on the screens at those particular times so they can charge advertisers more money for a 30-second spot. Now, this isn't discounting 10 million fans on Facebook. Obviously, The Office could, if leveraged correctly, could get a lot of those viewers to tune in to a show. But me, for instance, I obviously like them on Facebook, otherwise I wouldn't have gotten that notification. I haven't watched an episode of The Office live or DVR'd in weeks. It's probably only been 1 or 2 this entire season. So I guess the next question, and this is for another day, is how then does The Office take that potential for growth, that opportunity for growth, and translate it into actual results so they can charge more for an ad and NBC can make more money? How do they turn that into profit? That is an eternal question in social media, one that you have to kind of figure out, and it's different for every person, different for every demographic that you're trying to go after for all of your fans, but that's for an entirely different day. But right now all you need to know is 10 million fans on Facebook for The Office doesn't mean a whole lot to NBC, really. At the end of the day, it matters how many people are watching the program. So that kind of brings me into this whole idea of social media is not the end-all be-all. It is not the center of the universe. It is not the number one option for marketers all the time. And there was a really good article in Ad Age, I have to say, by Simon Domenko. And you can read it. I'll link to it in the show notes below here. And it basically talks about it, and it says right on here, the brutal truth about social media, it's okay to be a little antisocial. Obviously, social media centers on being social with people, having conversations with people. That's a big part of it. But at the end of the day, do people really want that all the time? If you're constantly trying to strike conversation with them, is that going to annoy them? What if they don't want to talk? Interesting statistic in this article, and this comes from Matt Creamer at adage.com, that slightly more than 1% of fans of the biggest brands on Facebook are actually engaging with the brands. Slightly more, 1%, a little more than 1% of all of the fans are actually engaging with that brand on Facebook. What does that mean? A lot of people just don't want to engage. A lot of people are just disinterested. On Facebook in particular, a lot of people are connected with brands they just don't simply care about. But at the end of the day, do we really want to engage? Why do you follow a brand on Facebook? Why do you follow a brand image on Facebook or Twitter? The number one reason consistently from users is to get information about that brand and to get coupons, get deals, get perks. It's not to have conversations with them. The interesting thing I think to take away from this is, A, social media is not necessarily for everybody. Look at your audience. If they're on social media, awesome. Talk with them, hang out with them, cater to them. But number two is that for brands in particular, where the Starbucks account, the McDonald's Twitter account, it's not about conversation. It's about broadcasting to people. What's about conversation is when you're talking to people. People want to have conversations with people. People don't want to have conversations with logos. So that's why I've always said, as a brand, you need to make sure you've got people that are brand identified on Twitter. So Mark at Dell, Mary at Starbucks, whatever, that people can have that conversation with, so that can evangelize your product and your brand. But don't expect to have conversations with the branded account. That, I think, is really more becoming a broadcast account. And that can also be an account that also, by the way, has customer service interaction. That's one thing. But to have actually a meaningful conversation, get to know your users, that takes more listening. I think it has to do with broadcasting. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Sometimes it's not terrible to be antisocial. This is just another perspective in social media and navigating these waters. But I don't think that's anything new to say that brands and logos aren't what people want to have conversations with. They want to have conversations with people who happen to work at that brand, not necessarily the brand itself. They want to know who they're talking to. They want to actually speak with a person. Same reason why people are always frustrated when they call customer service numbers and they get a computer. They want a person. I think the same thing goes on Facebook and Twitter. So what do you think about all this? Read that Ad Age article. What do you think about how the idea of being antisocial on social media? Maybe more listening, and maybe broadcasting isn't the worst thing in the world. After all, it's what people want from branded accounts more often than not. Let me know in the comment section. You can post a video response as well. And I also want to hear what you think about what big companies like NBC think about the number of people that are actually liking their Facebook page versus watching a television show. Do they actually take it into account? Do they actually care about it? Or do they just see it as growth potential? I will pose that question to our guest on the next episode of the Status Update interview series. Her name is Mary Hennigy. She is the social media director and director of digital communications at General Motors. And obviously General Motors, a lot of fans on Facebook in terms of different automobiles, different sectors of the organization. And how do you translate those likes and those people into actual dollars? Does the company look at that? How do they look at the fans on Facebook? Do they look at it growth potential? Do they look at it as these are people who actually like our product? I mean, how do you kind of delineate these fans and segment them and then turn it into profit, which is at the end of the day what you're trying to do? That interview series will be posted next Monday. That's going to be Monday, May 5th, looking at my, March 5th, looking at my calendar over there. Anyways, let me know what you thought of the show at Jacob Bodner on Twitter, comments below, and video responses as well. We'll have another episode next week on Tuesday, March the 6th. Until then, have a good one.